Vicar's Bridge, now, as then, lies on a quiet and secluded road between Dollar and Blaringone in Clackbannonshire. On the afternoon of December 18th, 1865, Alexander McEwan made his way along this road, unaware of the danger lying in wait. McEwan was in the process of making his rounds as a bakery delivery driver with his horse and cart. Upon reaching the vicinity of Vicar's Bridge, McEwan was confronted by a man wielding a gun, and a bullet was dispatched, striking McEwan and incapacitating him. He slumped over the side of the cart, whereupon the perpetrator dragged him onto the roadway and rifled through his pockets, leaving McEwan for dead and making off with around £5.
McEwan was soon discovered by passers-by, and a local doctor, Dr. Strachan, attended to him. Remarkably, McEwan was still able to speak at this point and complained of a pain in his back. The victim was only able to answer one more question, confirming that he was alone in the cart before dying. The Clackbannonshire police began their investigation, but did not have to look far for their prime suspect. In fact, no further than the cells at Tillicoultry. A 30-something man by the name of Joseph Bell had been arrested on a charge of theft in Alloa. Upon inspection of his belongings, Bell was found to have a considerable sum of money upon his person, a parcel containing blood-stained trousers which had been partially washed, and more bloodstains upon the clothes he was wearing.
Bell was not from the area. He originally came from Church Greasley in Derbyshire. He came from a good family, but for some reason left the area and headed north, eventually arriving in Alloa after a time spent working in Newcastle. Bell was a potter by trade and worked at a pottery in Alloa until he was dismissed for persistent bad conduct. Bell then relied on less than legal methods to provide for himself and his wife, who ran a small shop near Alloa. Indeed, Alexander McEwan made deliveries to the shop, so would have recognised his murderer. At the time of the murder, Bell and his wife had been separated for some time, and on December 18th he was staying with a friend in Devonside, a few miles from Vicar's Bridge. That morning, Bell had travelled to Alloa, purchasing some powder and shot from an ironmonger there. He then asked his friend if he could borrow a gun, on the pretence of going poaching. When his friend later questioned Bell about the whereabouts of the gun, and was not satisfied by his answer, he asked him to leave. From there, Bell made his way to a tramp's lodging house in Tillicoultry, where his arrest took place.
The evidence against Bell continued to pile up. Police matched footprints heading away from the murder scene to the pair of tacketed boots worn by Bell. After a search, the gun used by Bell was also located under the bridge. On Thursday, December 21st, Alexander McEwan was laid to rest in Alloa. Meanwhile, Bell was transported to Perth prison, still maintaining his innocence. At Bell's trial, the evidence was overwhelming. Particularly damning was a shilling with a hole in it, found in Bell's possession. It was proved that this particular coin had been paid to McEwan on the day of his murder. When Bell tried to explain by saying he'd sold some game to a dealer in Dunfermline and been given the coin, the prosecution called for every game dealer from that time to give evidence. Not one of them had ever heard of Bell.
Sentence of death was duly passed, and at 8 AM on May 22nd, 1866, Bell was led to the scaffold at Perth. A contemporary newspaper report described how Bell partook of a hearty breakfast and talked of his coming end with apparent apathy. A large crowd had gathered to witness the spectacle. Insisting upon his innocence until the very end, Bell was dispatched by the famous hangman William Calcraft.
Walk or drive along the road where Alexander McEwan's murder took place today, and it's not hard to imagine the events of more than 150 years ago. Joseph Bell was the last person to be hanged in a fully public execution in Scotland.